In this video, I'm going to share the 5 easiest ways for a hearing care provider to cut corners during your hearing aid fitting. Coming up. Hi guys, Cliff Olson, Doctor of Audiology and founder of Applied Hearing Solutions in Phoenix, Arizona. And on this channel, I cover a bunch of hearing-related information to help make you a better informed consumer. So if you're into that, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And don't forget to click the bell to receive a notification every time I post a new video. Hearing aids are amazing pieces of technology. That is, if you've had them fit and programmed correctly. Otherwise, they are just an overpriced piece of technology that you will never receive the full amount of benefit from. I think of it like a new phone where you can spend thousands of dollars a year on the latest and greatest technology with the best 5G data plan that exists. But if you're only going to use it to call and text and you're not going to actually use any of those other features, you might as well go ahead and save some money and just get yourself a brick phone. When it comes to hearing aids, even the best hearing aids in the world only perform as well as they are fit and programmed by a hearing care professional. If your hearing care provider decides to cut corners, then your chances of experiencing awkward moments because you still can't hear are significantly increased. Unfortunately, cutting corners during a hearing aid fitting can be super easy for a hearing care provider to get away with. That is, unless you know what to expect. So here are the 5 easiest ways for a hearing care provider to cut corners, and the first one is not performing quality control measures on your hearing aids. Quality control is just another way to say testing your hearing aids to ensure that they are mechanically functioning properly. This procedure entails obtaining test box measurement data to ensure that your hearing aids are mechanically performing correctly and meeting manufacturer specifications for things like overall output, gain, distortion, and equivalent input noise. Fitting a hearing aid that hasn't had quality control testing performed on it is like buying a car without knowing that it runs properly. In order to ensure that your hearing aids are going to amplify sound correctly, they have to be meeting the ANSI standards for that particular hearing device. And if they do not meet the ANSI standards, then they have to be sent back to the manufacturer for either a new device or to have that device repaired. The second corner that is really easy to cut is not ensuring that you have the appropriate length of receiver wire or tubing on your hearing aids. The proper length of hearing aid receiver wires or tubing is something that is very easy to ignore for a hearing care provider who likes to cut corners. But it is important to make sure that you have the right length of this wire or tubing because it will dictate how much retention you have, how much comfort you have with your hearing aids, and ultimately the microphone orientation. Get that receiver wire or tubing too long and you end up having a hearing aid that sits way too high up above your ear or falling back behind your ear, causing issues with retention. You end up getting that wire or tubing too short and it can actually pinch down on top of your ear, causing discomfort. The length of the wire and tubing can also dictate the orientation of the microphones. Most behind-the-ear hearing aids have a microphone in the front and a microphone in the back. And you want to make sure that these microphones are oriented in the proper direction so the hearing aids can function properly, especially in a noisy situation. Get this measurement wrong, and you end up having microphones that are either picking up sound from up above you or from down below you instead of in front of you. The third corner cutting method is always using a generic rubber dome instead of using a custom ear mold for hearing losses that may require it. Now don't get me wrong, there are a ton of generic rubber dome variations for the majority of individuals who have a traditional high-frequency sensorineural hearing loss. However, one of my biggest pet peeves is when a hearing care provider will always select a generic rubber dome instead of taking that next step to perform a custom ear mold impression or a 3D ear scan so they can order a custom ear mold to better treat a complex or more severe hearing loss. Does it take more effort to do a custom ear mold impression? Yes. Does it take more expertise to do it well? Yes. Does it take more time to get this custom ear mold back from a hearing aid manufacturer? Yes. But does it lead to better hearing aid performance? The answer is yes to that as well. The fourth easiest way to cut corners is to perform real ear measurement at one speech input level only. One of the comments that I get all the time is that just because a hearing care professional is performing real ear measurement doesn't mean that they're performing it correctly, and I totally agree with that. And one of the easiest ways to cut corners when performing real ear measurement is not taking all of the necessary measurements and not making all of the necessary adjustments. When verifying hearing aid programming using real ear measurement, your provider should be measuring and making adjustments for average, loud, and soft level speech inputs. With today's modern hearing aid technology, we don't have to amplify all sounds equally. That is what hearing aids back in the day used to do. Now we have the ability to give different levels of amplification based on the level of input that is coming into the hearing aid. Think of it this way. If you have someone who's yelling at you, we need to give less amplification to that signal compared to if someone is whispering to you. If your hearing care provider chooses to cut corners when doing these measurements, they may not be programming your hearing aids correctly for loud and soft level sounds, ultimately reducing the amount of benefit that you get with your hearing aids. And last but not least, the fifth easiest way for a hearing care provider to cut corners during a hearing aid fitting is by not performing a validation outcome pre and post assessment. Validation outcome pre and post assessments are critical for understanding your perceived improvement with hearing aids. And by simply asking you if things sound better is not a validated way of ensuring that you're getting the most benefit possible. There are much more specific assessments that can be completed, such as the client-oriented scale of improvement and the abbreviated profile of hearing aid benefit that can be administered at the beginning of your hearing aid fitting and again at the end of your fitting period. These assessments can help us get a much better understanding of how well you're performing with your hearing aids in very specific situations, and they don't even take that long to complete. At the end of the day, it is very easy for a hearing care provider to come up with excuses to cut these corners unless you are an informed individual and you hold them to a higher standard. One of the easier ways to ensure that your hearing care provider is not going to be cutting corners is to find a provider who follows best practices. And one of the easiest ways to find a provider who follows these best practices is by going to my website, drcliffaud.com, and going to the provider locator tool. If I don't have a provider near you, then the next best thing that you can do is print off the best practice checklist, take them to your hearing care provider, and ensure that they follow them so they don't end up cutting corners during your hearing aid fitting. That's it for this video. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. If you like the video, please share it. And if you want to see other videos just like this one, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I'll see you next time.